back for the featured segment app, and today we're going to be talking about a feature that's been around for a little bit, but is not most commonly known, and that is data administration in Business Central. And I was surprised to learn of this feature today, but Ken, Mr. Business Central, as I like to refer to him, knows a little bit about it. I'm going to pass this on over to Ken. Ken's going to tell us what this is and what does it do. So Ken, what is it and what does it do?
Yeah, so this is, to me, it's like I think of this. It's like almost like a secret new page that got created at some point down our journey from NAV to Business Central.
All right.
So, so you're running Business Central, right? You've got all of these different types of entries. You've got ledger entries out there. You've got registers. Every time you post something, it creates a register. You've got log entries, different types of log entries out there. And your database grows over time as you add more data to it, right? Well, there's a capacity, right, for data that you get. You get 80 gig plus like 2 gig per user, I think. Mm-hmm. And so far, from what we've seen, everyone has, because of the compression that they're doing in the SQL databases and excluding the attachments and things, no one's having any issues with living within the allocated capacity.
Right.
But we know that over time, companies will start to perhaps see some issues where they're kind of pushing up against their capacity limits. And of course, if they do, they can easily just add extra capacity for a monthly fee.
Yep.
And there you go. Just continue growing your database as large as you need it to get. You just keep paying more. But some people might be like, well, I've been running this for 15 years now, right? Or I have 15 years of data that I migrated in from my old system. And I don't really need it all. So what do I do? Where do I go? What utilities exist to allow me to optimize or clean up my database, if you will? Well, that would be the data administration page. So if you go in, you're a super user, you can go in, just do your search or tell me data administration, opens this page. This page shows you every table in your database, the number of records in the table, the size of the data, or like how much space is that taking up, as well as the growth percentage. So you can kind of see which tables, and you can sort by any of these columns and see which tables are growing the fastest, which tables take up the most space in the database, and so on. It also shows you if you have multiple companies in your environment, how much data each company is taking up, right? So it's kind of like a great overview. Here's where my capacity utilization is coming from. Now there is a kind of a more crude way to do this in the Business Central Admin Center. You can just go into like list of tables and see it from there. But this is more user based. So you're right in Business Central doing this. So that's just the start though. So now I've got all this information here. Now what I can do is I can go into actions. Under the actions drop down, I've got 2 different types of actions. I've got what I'll call cleanup and then compression. Cleanup is kind of removing records that you don't need anymore. So like examples of data cleanup would be deleting change log entries, right? So we're tracking any changes to certain fields on certain tables. But after, I don't need any of these that are over 3 years old.
So you can specify like a date.
When you go to delete them, yeah, you can
just
say
doesn't delete all
anything with a date of less than today minus 3 years. Go delete all these. You also can delete things like expired sales quotes, sales quote versions, sales order versions, purchase order versions. You can delete things like invoiced sales orders, invoiced purchase orders. You can delete within the CRM, Business Central marketing area, opportunities, logged segments, campaign segments, ledgers, or I'm sorry, registers, right? Now, when it comes to ledger entries, you can compress those. So you don't want to delete your GL entries or your item ledger entries. But let's stick with GL entries for a minute. You may have 10 million posted GL entries because you loaded in your full GL history.
Okay.
But you really don't need to see that granular level of data for anything over 5 years or 7 years, whatever it is. You can compress your entries. So that would be GL entries, tax entries, budget entries, customer ledgers, vendor ledgers, item ledgers. Item budget entries. I don't know if I see item ledgers. No item ledgers. So I take that back. Item ledgers is not there, but most of the other ledger entries. And what it does is instead of deleting them, let's say you have 100,000 GL entries for the month of January. You can compress those down into like a single entry per account plus dimension per day.
Okay.
So instead of having 10,000 entries to your accounts receivable account, because every single invoice hits accounts receivable, you can compress those down to a single net change amount per day. So you might be able to take those 10,000 entries to AR and compress those down to 50 entries.
And it's reducing the amount of space it takes up within Business
Correct.
Central?
Yep. Yeah. It literally deletes the original entries and creates a new summarized entry per day.
So it's basically creating a compressed folder in the background.
A compressed entry. So like for example, if you look in your GL entries table, again, let's say you had 10,000 entries that hit AR for the month of January. You might now only see 30 if you have one entry per day.
Gotcha.
And it just, so you still, the benefit is you still can run your financial statements. You still can run reports, but you're not going to be able to drill down into the individual transactions. But
can you uncompress them?
No.
Okay. So
once it's
you do
compressed,
it,
it's compressed. But the theory is like, okay, after 7 years,
you're compressing stuff that you're not going to need.
You don't really need to be going back in and looking at that level of detail.
Right.
So, and then lastly, there's what's called data retention policy. So in the data retention policy, let's take the change log entries, for example. You might define a retention policy that says, I only want to maintain 1 year of change log entries. And then you can automatically set the retention policy to run, and it just regularly makes sure that you only have 1 year of those entries available. So it's monitoring for you and continuously.
So you just set it and forget about it, basically.
Maintaining. Yep, there you go.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's real nice.
So this is I bring this up because it's kind of like a lot of people are like, well, wait, if you've used Nav before, you used to be able to go to the menu and you could find all these different data compression and data deletion utilities right off the menu.
Yeah.
They're not off the menu in Business Central. You can't find them. They're all held within this data administration tool.
Really?
So it makes it much easier to manage security, like who has the ability to do this, right?
Yeah.
And then the last thing, and this is again where I think Microsoft's taken this to the next level. In the original days, we would have had this whole page with all these cool functions and utilities, and we would have just had to go click on these things and figure it out. Now there's a button on the ribbon called the Data Administration Guide. It's a wizard that walks you through the steps. So for example, you click on it and it says, welcome to the Data Administration Guide. This will help you clean up various types of data in your company. You can run this guide again for each company, and it explains why it's beneficial. You click next. You can set your retention policies and enable those. It gives you an opportunity to review your companies, and maybe you just want to delete a whole company that you don't need anymore, because that could take up a significant amount of space.
Would you say it's very user-friendly then?
I would say it's very user-friendly.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, very. Yep. And it tells you, okay, here's data compression. Click here to learn more about data compression. And then you can go to the next, and you can pick which tables do you want to compress It's like little toggles you can pick. Hit next, you can pick a starting date and an ending date. How do you want to compress them per month, per week, per day, right? So you've got a lot of variables that you can pick as you go through this wizard. Do you want to retain your dimensions? Do you want to delete any empty registers that might be sitting out there? And then you can kind of run it.
So what's the rule of thumb? I know you have an accounting background. Is it never delete? You always hear the 7 years, right? Keep everything for 7 years.
For audit purposes.
Is that kind of the rule of thumb?
Yeah, that's the longest. Typically the longest, at least in the United States, from an IRS audit perspective, or a statute of limitations, 7 years is typically the longest. Some things are maybe 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. 7 is usually the longest that you have to keep that level of detailed records. And after that, you can you could shred that box of files. If
so you really don't want to compress anything that's over 7 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah. So
pretty cool.
So this is something that I kind of think it's like
it's like a hidden feature, right?
Jokingly call it like my secret page because it's. I mean, this has been out here for a while since version 18. We're now on 21 moving to 22 soon here.
So a few years.
So it's been out 2 years. This has been out there, but I don't remember much fanfare around this. Right?
I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember it being listed as a feature.
As a new feature.
Yeah.
It was 18.2 that it.
So it was a rollout update.
It was a
monthly
minor
update.
monthly update.
Yeah. It's pretty big inclusion for minor.
So I think it's pretty powerful, pretty insightful to see what's going on, even if you don't use it for deletion, just to see which tables have the most records, are the largest, and what's your growth rate across different tables, so you can kind of extrapolate out how your database growth is projecting. How I have been doing this personally is I would go into an environment and I would do a kind of a screen capture in the admin center, and I would look at the used space, and then I would go in a month later and do the same thing, and just look at the difference and say, oh, the great database is growing about 0.5 gig a month.
Right.
So you can
you have some sort of, you can gauge some when you might need more memory or whatnot.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's nice. I like that feature a lot. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot today.